This podcast is part of the Big Heads Media Podcast Network. Go to bigheadsmedia.com for more great podcasts. Welcome to Body Count, a history podcast.
Hello, and welcome to Body Count, the podcast where we believe history doesn't repeat itself, it rhymes, and a proud member of the Big Heads Podcast Network. We're here to show you don't hate history, you just hate the way it was taught to you. Only rule when we choose a topic, someone or a lot of someone's died. Now, we give you the series of events in a narrative fashion. By the end, correlate said story with current events. I'm not PBS Ken Burns or Dan Carlin. If you want a Hoover-esque, just the fact spam history podcast, we are not going to be for you, i.e. there will be analysis, opinions. I'm not lecturing. I'm just free-forming here. So my opinions are my own. Know that I hold all of my co-hosts verbally hostage. That is very important. Please direct your hate at me where it belongs. Especially all you neo-Nazis that I'm getting here recently. So it said tragedy plus time equals comedy. No, we giggle at some very occasionally rough subject matters. I'm not trying to actively offend anyone, but you've been warned. So if none of that feels like it's for you, please go ahead and stop listening now and don't review me on iTunes. That being said, if you are a fan, do review us on iTunes. But I'm joined, as always, today by my co-host,
Bethany Skelton. Hey. As always. Hello.
As always. Oh, God, you sound freaking thrilled about it. Did you put those dogs down yet, or did you lock them outside?
Sorry, I think my internet finally showed up because, the one we had died days ago. And my children cannot live without the internet. So,
Well, I've got my two beasts in here lounging with me, quiet as the grave. Well behaved. Yeah, and they are giant dogs. Just saying. Hashtag master. But guys, despite the intro, that is not really what we're doing today. We're not doing our normal jive. We have yet another guest for you. And we're going to talk a little bit about his book, which I'm super stoked about. And you know that I normally lie when I say I'm excited to read people's books, but I did not lie this time because I really, really enjoyed it. So, Mark, if you go ahead and introduce yourself to our audience, they'll be super excited to not listen to me talk.
Thank you so much. It's really awesome to be on a podcast which for once isn't boring as shit.
Woo, you got a good laugh. There you go.
So I'm Dr. Mark Vincent. I wrote a book fairly recently. It's called Criminal Subculture in the Gulag. We're going to kind of get into it, I guess, during the episode. It's available through Bloomsbury. It's so fucking expensive. If you want a copy, DM me and I'll send it to you.
Honestly, I'm here for that.
I just spit my beer back into the beer can.
Seriously, though.
A real man of the people. I love a man of the people historian. I love it. This is all fucking proletariat today, kiddos. Guys, we're going to get into some interesting topics today. We've got a lot of shit to cover. We're going to kind of dive in. Everybody knows I'm not great at interviews. And everybody also knows Bethany hasn't even read the fucking book, which makes it even better.
I have no idea what's going on. Yay! I'm here. Well, I mean, I do have some idea. I get the gist. Well, we'll see. We'll see how you explain.
We get to learn real time with you.
Okay.
So that's also really exciting. So the first thing I want to get into, Mark, When I read the title for this book, I essentially was like, oh, I'm going to kill myself. I don't want to read this, right? Like, this sounds just like a slog through the worst. But I started reading it, and before I knew it, I was done with the entire deal. I read all of it in a day, like literally a night. It was a real page turner. But I have to ask, what got you into this? Because specifically, if you read the title, you think, oh, this is just going to be like hell, right? But it ends up being the most interesting thing ever. So what got you into all of this?
Okay. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. I really wanted to plug the title of the book.
straight off. Like that title wasn't one that I wanted. It was originally going to be called Cult of the Urka, which is just to give it a really like a cheap plug, is like the name of my podcast now. I wasn't allowed that because apparently it doesn't have enough keywords for people to find on Google. So it ended up being Criminal Subculture in the Gulag, which is very direct. I mean, it's easy to get an understanding of what's in it, right? Basically, the reason that I started the project was just watching a film about the Russian mafia in London. So there was a really awesome movie called Eastern Promises by David Cronenberg, and it's got Viggo Mortensen in and Vincent Cassel, and it's very, very violent.
I have a question. What was the name of the? You said Eastern what? What was the name of that?
It's called Eastern Promises, and I guess it's around like 2000, and it's about the Russian mafia in London. And Viggo Mortensen spends a lot of time with his shirt off, showing off his criminal tattoos.
Just FYI, he hangs dong in a shower for a knife fight. So that's definitely going to get you into it.
Yeah.
But let's talk about the tattoos.
Tell me more.
Go on. No, that's not the important part. I'm just saying what's gonna really hook our viewership and listenership is that.
So there's tattoos like throughout the whole film. So I just kind of figured like this is Russian mafia in London in like whenever it was that the early 2000s, I guess. See if I can trace it back a little bit further, and watched an awesome documentary on YouTube by a filmmaker called Alex Lambert, who is incredible. It's her photo which is on the front of my book. Yeah, Mark of Cain is so good. So I kind of started tracing things backwards through Mark of Cain and ended up at the Gulag, like kind of as you do. And I found out about an exhibition of criminal tattoos in London, went along to that, and started a relationship like from that point onwards with the publishers who own the tattoo drawings, and I just kept on digging from there. Just took the film and run with it, really.
Talk about a rabbit hole, Jess. Like that's not even a rabbit hole. I don't even know what to call that. Like that's pretty.
That's why I love it, though. That's why I love it so much, because it's not it's not like I did a formal research request after I Googled readability on history, and now I'm going to jack off to World War II or be, you know what I'm saying? Like,
look
it's
how
not.
Big my dick is.
Look how big my academic dick. Let me roll it out red carpet style and let you crawl up it to suck it. Oh my God, no disrespect to our last guest. I love you guys so much.
No,
I'm so
that's
sorry.
not what I meant. That's not what I meant. That is not, Jessica, that is not. Wow.
That's my normal vibe, you know, but, you know, like.
Hashtag covering my bases. Mark has really put us off base for having hashtag way too much fun. Oh, I bumped my mic. That's the one thing our producers tell me not to do, guys. Is bump my mic.
I'm the host
I'm
now
fired.
of this podcast.
I shouldn't be a I shouldn't be a podcaster. I mean, that's just basic, whatever. But it is what it is. You guys listen for whatever fucking reason, and God bless you. But I find that fascinating, though, just in and of itself, how you got to the idea of the book. Because a lot of people do. They set out when they want to write a book, and they want readability, and they want to be as pretentious as they can fucking possibly be. And it's so interesting to me that your book comes from this journey of something that you really initially got interested in, to go, oh, is that, necessarily a culture thing? Let's dive down this rabbit hole. Then you go to investigate it just as like a fun day, right? Like you got into this, you went to just look at shit and then kept diving. And so it's a very rabbit hole sort of history, which is not usually what we have on the show. And that is why I think it's so amazing. And if you guys please go out, buy it, read it. It is fascinating, because in that same way, and that's kind of the way your book progresses. And that's why I love it so much.
Thank you. I wanted it to be, like, right from the start, I just wanted it to be a book. I had to do a PhD to get there. Like, and that part was tedious. I appreciate, like, from the bottom of my heart, the money that I was given to do it, and the support that I was given. But I just wanted to write a book. But the only way I could conceive that happening was through a formal academic route, right? So I just applied for some funding. I had a really amazing supervisor, but I wanted to get to the point where it turned into a book, and then I can now hopefully just move on and keep writing books from here. Like the PhD was way too academic for me. I couldn't wait.
This is why I love having you on my show. Sans pretentious twatness.
I mean, I just think, honestly, from my degree is in dance. I have a BFA.
Bethany's a professional dancer. Not like on a pole,
like
performance.
Thank you, Jessica. Because unfortunately, that's what they call strippers, professional dancers. Yeah,
I'm talking like ballerina and contemporary, not on a pole.
Not like hustlers.
Anyway, no, it's just interesting that, it was almost like, because after talking to you before we started recording, I understand that this was a subject that was kind of, I hate to say forced or pushed, but it was your opportunity to move on, like, into that and write the book. And the fact that you kept going in after every web chasing and digging the hole even further, I think that's pretty cool. And that would make me want to read, and at least attempt to read, a book that's academic, because that is the problem with academic books is, yes, it reaches out to the highly intellectual, but we want the mass majority to actually pick it up too. So.
Yeah, no, like my book is written for a wide audience, but it's through an academic publisher, and hopefully enough people will buy it, or I'll give it away to enough people to eventually, like, it to spread into, I don't know, like, a lot of people having read it.
No, I get it. I mean, sometimes you have to, as a dancer, I've had to give my choreography away free. I've had to teach. I've had to think, hey, I'll give you a free lesson if you give me a shout out, like, as long as my name is attached, whatever it might be. So I get that. Sometimes you have to actually fight for your art or whatever you stand for. So I get it.
Yeah,
awesome.
I just want more people, as many people as possible, to engage in it. To chat with as many people to read it. Yeah, just wanted to. I think everyone, like what you're talking about with dancing, you just want what you're doing to get a response from people, right? Like, you want to affect them intellectually, emotionally, or whatever. You just want people to connect with it. So
exactly, but I don't think a lot of people are going to necessarily and essentially realize why they should connect with this particular work, and they really should. Oh, well, I'll get to it at the end. We correlate said story with current events later at the end. I'm not going to get into it now. Sorry. I got real passionate. I got #passionate about it, guys, going into it. Like, you got me real excited, and I blame the two of you for that. Normally, I'm a cold bitch that just reads whatever. Like, oh, I don't care. But kind of walk people, Mark, through, because what I find interesting about your book and what I think people are going to, a lot of times we get into, when we're looking at books about history, we get into a really classical narrative stance in how we approach history, as then we're going to talk about this thing, we're going to start on this date, we're going to go A to B to C, we're going to be done with this date, we're going to wank off, and we're going to fucking congratulate ourselves on how important we are. But what I love also about your book is it's a more modern narrative approach to history, in that there is no necessarily central narrative. This happened. It's a really, it's an exploration around a central theme, which I really, really appreciate. And it's not something a lot of people do. And if they do it, it's not necessarily highly readable because they're not well versed in it. And I feel like you are very well versed in telling the story and approaching it in that way. And that is why I love it so much. I thought it was absolutely fantastic.
Cool. I mean, like the explanation for why it turned out the way it did is going to sound pretentious as shit, right? Hashtag pretentious as shit.
Oh my God! Hold on. Let me get my notepad. Let me get my pen. Let me address His Highness.
Keep notes, please.
So I never wanted to write like a normal history book. Like the thing that always interests me is like gonzo journalism, subcultures, but also this is the pretentious part, semiotics, like signs and symbols. So that's
I don't
I can feel the ridicule now coming all the way across the pond.
Good. I want you to feel my ridicule across the Atlantic.
But the book's all about rituals, right? You know, and that's just what it is. Like it's about tattooing and slang and punishment. Like so, that's why I broke it down in that way, just because I wanted it to be. I wanted it to be a kind of weirdly kind of similar to tarot.
So
like I wanted the chapters to be like tarot cards.
Signs and symbols, Bethany. Sorry, I haven't quit laughing, guys. Signs and symbols, the study of signs and symbols.
You need to read Umberto Eco. Like, get stuck into that. Like, it's so good. It's like that. Once you hit like some Umberto Eco, then all you want to do is write about semiotics.
I'm down with that.
I'm so sorry, guys. Oh, I haven't got over where we lost Bethany. And Mark, you were on such a good roll, and I didn't want to stop it.
Thanks, Jess.
No. And that's what I think is really interesting about it, is that it has a central theme. It's not a A to B to C. Oh, show up for my lecture in fucking written form. Which, Jesus Christ, kill me. And just let me go ahead and put it out to most historians. I know you think that you're interesting as fuck, but most of us want to kill ourselves. About 2 hours into your pretentious bullshit. Honestly, and that's what I loved about your book.
If you want to find out stuff about the Gulag, then this ain't the book for you. Right? Go and read my friends' books. You know, I'll give you a long list of them. They're amazing. This book is not about.
plug your podcast really quickly right now while I'm on it, because you do plug if you want to find out about the Gulag.
All I do is plug my
You
friend
always
book.
plug that.
Like, the podcast is 90% of me putting over my friends.
It's nothing to do with you plugging yourself. You realize that you just plug other people's work, like Willy fucking Nelly.
This is the stuff that I've read, and I've repeated it to the point where it borders on plagiarism.
Honesty is the best key.
It doesn't though. It's all your stuff.
It is my stuff. But if I need to find out how many people in a certain camp at a certain time, I'm not going to be the person who finds it out. I'll find it in someone else's book. So yeah, I've got a long list on my website.
That's a great thing.
Yeah,
that's a great thing about you is you plug people's work in an unrelated way. You immediately start talking about your work, and you're like, "Oh, there's this one thing that you can kind of find out from somebody else." You'll spend 5 minutes plugging somebody else's fantastic academic work, and then you're just like going to yours. It's fantastic.
I should be.
Fantastic.
I should do PR or be an agent for other people.
Yeah, you should. You're great at it.
More profitable route, I think, as well. Like there's a long list. On my website, there's a list of stuff to read on the Gulag. So, cultoftheurka.wordpress, and you can find the podcast through that. But for what it's worth, it's Cult of the Urka, and it's on Spotify and Apple and all those other places. Places that I don't even know about.
In the World Wide Web.
It's on Google. It's on Stitcher. It's everywhere that you can listen to podcasts, guys.
You just have to use the word Urka, which doesn't make sense to anyone other than me. And a few Russians. And it's why my publishers wouldn't let me use it in the first place. Wow.
What a man of the people you are. Truly. Oh my God, I'm crying.
I know.
So what we're going to do really quickly is take a break. So Mark, I'm sorry. We're taking a break. Not girls. You, Mark.
The other Mark.
We're girls, and I'm about to pee my pants. And then after we get back, we're going to talk about kind of relatability, how you do things differently. You took that central idea, which is not what you're going to find in most academic books, and we'll really get into the meat and potatoes. I just wanted to kind of get through the intro and everything.
Yeah, no worries. Like, cool. Yeah. Again, whatever you want to ask.
So, based on just that fact, I think it's fantastic that you've decided to write a book solely on almost iconography or something that you've taken and you've created this narrative around. And it's not that it's not a narrative history. It's very much a modernized narrative, and that you take these small parts and you really plug this in to kind of a cultural narrative, which I find fascinating. And that's why I love this book, Mark. I thought it was absolutely great. Like, you killed it. Tell us about kind of how you got into that, how the story was. I took this picture. I went. I'm sorry. I got too uppity with it. I got too uppity. Gross, you dumb bitch. You very much took one thing and really kind of devolved this. But how did you start picking and choosing what it was that you included, what it was you centered on, and kind of tell us a little bit about what the book essentially is about also?
Okay, so the book ended up being a journey, it's supposed to represent what happens to a prisoner from the moment they get arrested and transported to the labor camps, and then what happens as soon as they arrive, and then after that, right up until the really kind of gruesome, horrible stuff at the end. But it started with the tattoo stuff, and I kind of built around it. There wasn't the idea for it to be a journey didn't happen straight away. It just kind of like almost ended up that way by accident. I just took the tattoos and kind of built outwards around them, and it turned. I needed to find a way of telling the story. Like my head only works in terms of visuals and stories. Like I'm not a documents person. Like
no,
you have your doctorate. Oh my god, it's amazing.
When you mean by you started, you got really kind of what the when you reference the tattoos and stuff like that. What do you mean by that? So
the tattoos have got a specific code to them, right? So the tattoo collection, something that I'm working on for my next book, the tattoo collection, each image basically functions as a part of someone's identity. Like someone has a passport on their body, which is in the form of tattoos. So you have tattoos for certain types of crime. So if you're an arsonist, you have a certain tattoo. If you're just a normal kind of
like
thief,
a code or like a number or something similar.
But think you're back, baby. Like huge everywhere. Like a story, a written story.
Yeah, totally. Like Egyptian hieroglyphics, right? Over their whole body. So I'm not a very normal historian, so I kind of I like the idea of like how people's bodies function, right, and what is represented on them. So I just kind of dug into that idea that people have these tattoos on their hands to, if they're a bandit or if they're an arsonist or if they're a bank robber or whatever. People have tattoos,
or it's their misdoings, or it's their whatever they've done wrong is what is displayed.
So they can. It's communication, right? So people don't have to talk to each other.
Right.
But
it sounds and reminds me a lot of like Jean Valjean in Les Miserables. Where he's got a number attached to him, and it's hard for him to carry on afterwards.
Yeah. I love that.
Also,
I'm a metaphorical person.
If you would have had this conversation before the book come out, I would have stolen that idea. I would have passed off as my own.
Unashamedly stolen. But no, also Bethany, there's like a code within it. These are it's also, I want to differentiate. It's not, as you get later on, necessarily something somebody did wrong. It's sometimes later something that's classified as an enemy of the state. And it's not, you talk about the 49ers in your book, which I think is interesting, really interesting.
It's not the American football team. Like, everyone remembers it because of right? It's good marketing.
No Joe Montana here.
No Joe Montana. But up until I came along and tried to do something kind of different, people only talked about 58ers because that is the number for political prisoners. So I just tried to widen the story out a little bit and include some another group of prisoners. It turns out that the 49ers are not nice people. Like, the majority of them are in prison for really horrible crimes. But the idea of me doing the book and doing the 49ers was to eventually have other people start doing, like other numbers, like the 16ers and the 25ers and whatever it is. Just because everything has been dominated by a discussion of the 58ers in the past, because Russian history focuses on people being imprisoned for their political beliefs. So I tried to change the narrative of that a little bit. I'm not sure how successful it has been, but
no, I feel like it is because well, maybe if going into it what law codes and what everything is, and I feel like a lot of people that are probably going to read your book are going to already know. And so I thought that was massively interesting because it's from another perspective, because this is not an area of Russian history I deal with at all, delve in at all. But I do have a cursory knowledge. And so just automatically, as I'm going, the 49ers, I'm not thinking, obviously, San Francisco. I'm thinking the law code. So I was already interested going into it, going, well, who the fuck are these people? Like, why should I care? Why should I? Because it's still culturally significant. And I thought it was really, really significant getting into the prisoner newspapers. I was so fascinated because that's not something I would ever think to look at or to delve into. And the fact that, sorry, I'm gonna quit explaining Mark's book to Mark. It's Mark's book.
I don't even know what are prisoner newspapers.
I feel like you're better at doing it than me.
Wait, what?
Yeah, are you ready? Are you ready for my book review? I'm just gonna read it directly to you.
Do you want to do my audiobook for me? That would be cool.
Yeah, I would, because what every Russian-based history book needs is a Texas accent, and I feel like it's just missing from Bible.
Yeah, progressively more drunk throughout the book.
Oh yeah, like I'll be sloshed by the end. I mean, like
conclusion, you just black out at the end with nothing. That's my dream audiobook.
That is the audiobook I would download.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't care how ridiculously priced it is. I will
but they haven't seen my cheekbones. That's my case.
Oh, you made me snort. Oh God.
I think it's a very cool idea. Let's get Bloomsbury on it. Like there needs to be a drinking game designed around my book.
Oh, I'm sure Bloomsbury's on it.
Every time you read the word 49ers, you have to do a shot or something.
Oh God.
That was messy.
I'll get blackout by the time I'm done reading it, sir. You have no idea.
Do you have the game? Do you have the drinking game Centurion in the States?
What's it called?
Centurion.
Not in the States.
What's it based? What do you do?
So every minute,
it's probably called something different.
You set a timer, right? And every minute you do a shot of beer, like a 5% beer, but you're doing it so quickly that it hits you really. And the idea is that you try to get to 100, and then and whoever gets to 100, I made it to 80. I thought I did pretty well.
Every minute, shot of beer, right? 5% or higher.
Yeah. Like it
like
only has
shot of platinum, right? Be like platinum Bud Light or something like that, right, Jay?
Yeah, like it doesn't.
No, it's gonna be we're gonna need a higher percentage. None of our percentages are gonna match.
No, I think platinum is 6%. I don't know.
What state you're in.
I'm not gonna debate it. That's crazy.
It doesn't add up to much. Like it's in the UK, it's 4 pints, but you're doing them so quickly that like it just hits you really, really hard. The
reason we don't have that game in the States is because we have to go state to state depending on what the alcohol content of beer is per state regulation.
Yeah. Store county as well. Because there are dry counties.
And per county in the state into the beer that's sold there. So you can play that in a lot of states and get to 100 and just be fine. Others, you're going to fall to the floor. You know, like south of I-10 in Louisiana, you're going to be fucked. So it kind of depends on where you're at. I'm sorry, Louisiana. Let me say correctly. Not like a southern.
I got chased off a property one time. So in Louisiana, trying to find the highway, my Google Maps took me the wrong place. So.
Well, it's a scary fucking place. That said,
place backwoods.
So, because I know that Bethany has tattoos. I do not have any, but Bethany's like really into storytelling for her life through tattoos. So imagine when we approach like everything that's going on in this book, essentially kind of through this purview too. So we've talked about a little bit about the 49ers, but also what I love about your book is going into all of this. You also kind of address like the subculture of the Gulag, but you also kind of address these really interesting, almost like Robin Hood figures, for a lack of a better word. That's not what I mean necessarily, but almost these Robin Hood figures, kind of Russia, that have this, the criminology ties in, and that's really interesting both to a Soviet culture and to the culture that exists today, and I find that really fascinating.
Like the Robin Hood thing is right. Like that's what they've been turned into, you know. So I write in the book quite a lot, like that is what they've become in songs and like stories about them. But then the way that I have kind of refashioned it in the book is that they're not, you know, they are stealing from the rich, but they're definitely not giving it to the poor. They're just keeping all of it for themselves. Right. They're not even spreading it around the rest of the gang. Like the leaders of the gang are keeping stuff for themselves, and like
it'd be like winning the ultimate lottery and not giving back anything.
Yeah,
like,
totally. Yeah, just keeping it all, hoarding it, and still making other people go out and do stuff for you. Yeah, and I write a lot about like the bandits thing is the first chapter of the book, and it was supposed to be a bit of a prequel, like a Star Wars type of vibe, just to kind of set everything up. I actually
you made it spit out your drink, Jess. Recording right now.
I'm sorry, people can't see us, but Mark just made me want to spit out my drink, calling that a prequel to the fucking story. Because it very much is, in the time frame, a lot of it is a prequel, but it sets up to, God, this again, why I love your book. You don't throw that traditional narrative at me. And it's very much an exploration of a lot of things around a central theme, which I think is great. It's fucking fantastic, and I wish more people did it, but they don't, because they're twats. Sorry to all your twats who've been on my show before. Oh, I'm gonna get in so much trouble. Okay.
I like the idea that next week, like the next episode, I'm gonna have become one of those twats now. Like, and you're gonna be next week. You're gonna be saying, "Oh, there's this weird guy who came on last week and he talked about criminal tattoos in Russia."
You won't be. The problem is, I will defend you to a fault. Against what I should not necessarily be speaking against, because it's kind of our show. Well, not necessarily our show. Mostly our show is us selling weird stories. But it should be.
You don't have to worry about me, because nobody comes to me and asks any questions. So you're fine. You're fine on this end. Nobody talks to me about anything, and I'm okay with that.
I want to know, Bethany, what your tattoos are now. Like now that Jessica brought it up earlier.
I have several actually. I want to say that I probably have 2, 3, 4. I want to say I've gotten tattooed 4 times.
Okay.
But I have one that is minuscule. It's just on my foot. It's a heart on my left foot, and then one of my other friends, she has the outline of a heart on her.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah, so I love that idea.
Yeah. But the one that I've spent the most money and time on is my back.
Okay.
And it started out in my neck, and then it's draped down and morphed into, and it's not done, but time, money.
Yeah.
So tattoos are awesome. I love them.
That's why I thought you would identify with the idea of creating an active story literally upon one's back, the biggest canvas, and moving out from there, chest, whatever. And that's
some of the Russian ones are incredible. They're amazing.
You can kind of see it's not done, obviously, but it creeps up.
But Bethany, that's what you can identify with these guys, right? And
yes.
So this entire narrative blossoms from you, tattoo sister. So not only that, but we get into our Robin Hood tales, which I thought were fantastic. Like, I really enjoyed that background and going into like a criminal culture. It's kind of like what we talked about before, and this belief that criminology and the criminal culture would eventually fade and go away with Soviet influence. And also the perception that existed within Imperial Russia. And to put it into their perspective, and we didn't talk about this for the podcast and we don't have to, but to put it in the perspective of what these stories are and how they vary. I really, really enjoyed all of that as well, getting into the theme. So where did you find these stories? How did you get into it? Like, where did that come from?
I mean, the most straightforward answer is I learned Russian and then I copied them. And like no one has done.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That is the best answer ever. I mean, I love that.
No one has done this stuff in English before. Like, I know I said that flippantly, but it was that I knew this stuff all existed in Russian, and it would be cool to try and use it in the book. But like, ideally, I would have used the stuff. Like, I would have turned it into a whole book on its own. But there just wasn't enough of it out there. So I found that's why I came up with the it was the idea of like the prequel. I accept is ridiculous, and comparing it to Star Wars and so on. But I just didn't have enough of this stuff to make it into a whole book. So I translated it, and then I found a way of bringing it into the story that I'm trying to tell.
Oh, you just translated it. Hold on. Just for our listening only audience, I have my notepad and my smartass pen. So let me just write down, learn Russian. Because it's the easiest non-regional based dialect in the fucking world to learn. I'm sorry for the F word, audience. Like, it's so easy. Let me just learn Russian. And then let me just tell these tales. And this is the only ones that I have time to translate. Oh, God, how horrible it is to be that fucking smart.
You need software as well, translation software. You need a PDF reader.
I'm flipping him off so hard, audience.
In my case,
I don't attempt any Russian names. I don't attempt anything other than my own language because I already know I'm going to suck horribly at trying to pronounce it. It's just a proven fact.
I wept at the alphabet. I have found myself weeping trying to learn that. It is just not my language. It's not my language.
Once you get the alphabet and get the basics, it fits together. Like it's okay. Like obviously it's really fucking hard, but once you get the simple parts in place.
You fuck off. Obviously it's really easy, but it's also really fucking hard. Mostly the emphasis on it's really fucking hard. No, it doesn't matter if you get the sounds down. Nope. It's not like any other language in the world.
It looks like a scary language, right? And it's ugly and
it sounds scary. It even sounds scary. I'm sorry.
Well, they're a terrifying group.
But once you work out how stuff fits together, it becomes a lot easier, right? Like probably, I guess.
Right.
Yeah, other languages.
Totally. I totally get what you're saying, Mark.
Let me just write that down for my shit to do tomorrow. Hold on. Like, and it's not a regionally based dialect at all.
No.
I mean, everything is Moscow Russian from what I hear. You dick.
Also, like, you need to write on your pad. This is important, right? I need to give her props. Like, get yourself a badass Russian teacher like mine. Like, she is incredible. She's also got a pool at her house, which is why I spend half of my life there. But Veronica, my Russian teacher, is responsible for a lot of stuff that made it into the book. Like, she taught me how to swear in Russian and criminal slang and all kinds of stuff, you know. So I would not be anywhere without my translator.
Oh, how rough it must be for you doing the butterfly and learning to put the emphasis on the second to last syllable. How difficult that lie sounds.
No. Now I get it. No. I get it now. You had a translator teaching you. So, I mean, sure. We're roughing it out here, Mark. Okay, we're doing what we need to learn, and you had it spoon-fed to you.
He's being a dick also. He understands a whole lot more than he's just like, oh, my translator. Like, he's suddenly going like full fucking humble style on it.
You've ruined my carefully cultivated public persona. Don't let people know.
I'm just an ordinary person. I don't have a tutor.
Oh, I'm an ordinary person. I just picked it up myself. I've learned it off of fucking YouTube.
Right.
I'm just a relatable human being.
I've just published a book.
I got Rosetta Stone. So now, Mark.
Yes, Jessica?
Not my producer, Mark.
Aw, it's been confusing this whole show.
That we've had a discussion a little bit about getting into the 49ers, kind of when we get into the actual culture itself, your fucking pretentious speaking, apparently, and understanding and translation of the Russian language. It is galling because it escapes me, sir. You know, German, fucking field day. French, you betcha. Russian, there is a serious barrier in my fucking mind that exists that I cannot learn such a thing. Can't read it, can't learn it. I have no skill for it. That being said, there is, once we start getting into your book, and we've kind of delved into some of the stuff, but we're going to deep dive a lot of the stuff in what he has agreed will be future appearances on this podcast. So, you know, he gets to do this for free. So that's exciting. Because what he wants to do is plug his book on somebody else's podcast versus his own. What a fucking treat for you, Mark.
What though, Jessica? That shows just how pretentious he isn't.
Yeah.
Just how pretentious he is not, ladies and gentlemen. Which is going to appeal to you, a lot of you listeners, more than what necessarily is. But what I really want to get into is kind of the second subsection of your book. Is like we talked about earlier, there are a lot of those Robin Hood myths, and we start to really look at the history of criminology in Russia and what is this basis for everything. But I think you have one story for us that you particularly want to talk about, and one that I absolutely love. I'm about to go insane commenting on. So.
Right. So, like, try to fill the book as much as possible with characters. You know, like I wanted to tell stories inside, you know, a larger story or whatever. So, I looked for different individuals, and some of those, like, you know, I said earlier, I just translated it over. Some of them were kind of known already, like to English speaking people. So there is a female super thief called Sonka Golden Hand, whose story had floated around a little bit. A whole load of stuff had been written about her in English and a bit in Russian and TV series. And what I wanted to do was take a deep dive and kind of explore her character and the myths about her, and then try to figure out how to detach the stuff that was just kind of made up from the stuff which is, you know, she got sent to prison for and stuff like that. Try and kind of get to the real Sonka Golden Hand. So try to piece together her story. Essentially, she runs a criminal gang, like in the late 19th century. So like kind of 1870 onwards, and she's pretty badass because she's the only female who's around doing it. Like as far as anyone can figure out, all the other bandits are men. She essentially develops a gang in the same way. Like she's the leader of this gang in the same way as other male bandits. She makes all the big decisions. She kind of figures out who's going to go out and commit like these little crimes for her. But what makes her stand out more is her participation in like big scale jewelry thefts, like really kind of sensational types of crime. Like so she's running this criminal gang called the Jacks of Hearts. They get up to all kinds of kind of smaller, going into shops and just taking the money from the counter and whatever. But she manages to come off with these really elaborate schemes to steal jewels from jewelers, and a lot of the people that she steals from are just rich, gullible men. Like I became fascinated with this idea that there was this female super thief going around and just tricking all these guys into essentially giving her money and property and anything that she wanted, basically.
I hate to be this Conan Doyle type asshole, but almost like a Russian Irene Adler, if one will.
Like in my head, like Irene Adler, that's the perfect a kind of cross between Irene Adler and Lola Montez. Like there's a little. Because there's a little bit more.
There's a lot of Lola Montez, though. Like honestly, more.
And with Sonka, she's got a bit of a more of a sexual side than Irene Adler, I think, just from the books and the TV show.
Yeah.
So so my image of Sonka is somewhere in between, like in between Irene Adler and Lola Montez. And these guys, she tricks all of them. Sometimes two guys at the same time. She'll play them off against each other.
Like she's, like you said, she's kind of a badass.
Yeah,
she is a badass.
Yeah, she's a kind of classic, femme fatale. She rocks up in like hotel rooms that she knows there's like a single guy staying in there. The guy will be passed out. She'll steal some money, but if he wakes up, she'll kind of act embarrassed for being there and start stripping off a little bit. Yeah.
I apologize for it. I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. They end up letting her walk away with whatever she wants. Yeah.
Yeah, and she kind of gets turned into.
I don't know what happened.
Yeah. Yeah. I thought this was my room. And she gets turned into this kind of Robin Hood type of character as well. A little bit. There are a few kind of stories about her finding a guy passed out and realizing that the guy that she'd seen passed out is on the verge of suicide, and finding a suicide note that basically explains that this guy has spent the money intended for his sick sister's treatment, and instead of stealing the money, she then adds more money to the pile that's there, and leaves it for him to help obviously pay for the treatment.
Interesting.
So she's been kind of.
That's where we kind of see that interception, I think, too, of that Robin Hood narrative, which is fascinating to me that it exists in and of itself and kind of transcends culture. Because the reality of that story, I think you and I can agree, is zero.
Total bullshit, right? Like, almost definitely.
Total bullshit. Almost definitely.
It should be in the fairy tales that were read to me.
But it's interesting to me that there is this existence of almost this mythology of, especially considering Russian culture at the time of the Golden Hand myth, like, and it's not a myth, but a lot of mythology is attached to, or best that we can understand. I mean, who actually, can know. But it's such a fascinating ideology and a study to me that seems to transcend culture, and especially at a time that I think maybe the culture in Russia particularly needed that. And so it's really, really interesting. It's really interesting that they chose a female figure to attach these things to.
Yeah.
Which in a way people don't necessarily associate as progressive, but surprisingly progressive.
We all know how Russian government felt about women. So
yeah.
Up until that Soviet sort of liberation kind of period, which is I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
it's fascinating.
It's fascinating, but the liberation stuff that happens in 1917, that only lasts for a decade at the most, and then it disappears again, right? So, again, like, there's, like, they genuinely believe in it, I think, at the start, but after 4 or 5 years, all of that emancipation stuff starts very slowly to just disintegrate, and.
And there you go. That's what we're getting to.
Yeah. What I think is interesting about Sonka is that there's a TV show, a really popular TV show in Russia, and this is in the conclusion of my book. There's a popular TV show about 10 years ago, which has got her as the main character, and so Sonka has now become a kind of feminist icon in Russia, because of the TV series, even to the point that there is a statue in a graveyard that has been adopted. Like, no one knows who this statue and this grave belongs to, but people have decided that it's hers, and they'll go and leave flowers there, and they've graffitied all over the statue just because of the popularity of the TV.
Venus Venus de Milo looking bit.
Yeah, like. There was the statue looks like Venus de Milo, with the head is like has been knocked off. I tried to put an image in the book of it, and publishers wouldn't let me. So
why?
I don't know, like because they don't like me very much.
No, I meant that as rhetorical. Sorry.
Because you're abrasive as fuck, Mark. God.
Too much, Mark. Damn it, no.
But there are photos around. Like, if you Google Sonka Golden Hand, you'll find this statue, and you'll find some pictures of her that got taken when she eventually gets banged up, like locked up for good on an island, which is like it's like the Russian version of Alcatraz that she ends up being incarcerated on. So if anyone Googles Sonka Golden Hand,
which we're going to get to. No, don't give away yet. We're going to get to in your later episodes.
Okay.
The Russian version of Alcatraz.
Yeah, spoiler alert.
Hashtag spoiler alert, motherfuckers.
Yeah.
You're really into Russian prison culture, which surprisingly a lot of our listeners are going to be.
Of course, yeah.
Well, I've gotten shit from the Kremlin Museum that I just cry at and have to ask our Russian-speaking listeners, please help me. And they always do. So, they're great. So they're going to be really excited about this as well. There are a surprising lot of them And I think our Russian Imperial series, but I think that is where we're going to leave it this week, because we have a lot more to get into with your book, and I really, really want to explore it, and I really, really want to look at it. And I will go ahead and tell our listeners, it's not the usual thing that, unfortunately, I generally tend to recommend because they're thrown at me. There are things I review, there are things that I look at, and they're the most atypical, boring shit in the world, and I generally have to dress them up. But the great thing about Mark's book is I don't have to dress it up. It's already really, really interesting. The way it's presented is interesting. The material is interesting. I don't have to convince you to learn here. You will enjoy learning for once. For fucking once.
I'm here for it. I'm hooked. And that's
exactly.
Okay?
That is saying something, because she doesn't read shit. So, I mean, like, she's already fascinated. Normally, she talks her way through this shit, and it's just like, oh, I'm bored. I'm going to interrupt with a story. But she has listened to you, Mark, which is already fascinating in and of itself to me, that she has listened. So that tells me it's going to be something our audience is into. So bear in mind, guys, we're kind of only maybe a quarter of the way through what this book entails. And we've just been shooting the shit about it and kind of going through it. So I'm really excited in the next few weeks to go through the other stuff that exists there and everything that's there for you guys to read. Because, again, it's not what you're necessarily used to. And it's really fantastic. And it's really, really interesting. And I want everybody to read this book. Because, again, when I read the title, I was like, go fuck yourself, Dr. Mark Vincent. Like, Jesus, I'm going to read this and I'm going to want to fucking hang myself. But if you read it, it's the most fascinating, like, beyond the scope of what you usually encounter. And specifically, what you usually encounter in Russian history, and also the way it's presented, the way it's written, and it's really something outside of the scope of what we usually bore you with. So I'm very, very excited. Everybody, we're going to wrap it up this week. Go check out our Patreon. Go check out our network at bigheadsmedia.com. You can find all our merchandise and our bullshit there. Mark, where do people find you?
Wow, Jessica, thanks for asking. Well, I mostly live in the computer here and do the edit. Oh, you're still not talking to me, are you?
On social media.
So I'm at Vincent Criminal on Twitter, and I'm Cult of the Urca on Instagram, and like my podcast is on Spotify and iTunes and everywhere. So
also plug your website.
Yeah, cultoftheurca.wordpress. Like there's basically nothing on it other than links to some cool books and to my podcast and some pictures. Go check it out.
Brilliant.
God. Fucking great plug, sir. Am I gonna have to start reading you, like writing you plug texts? Like, I feel like you do this for your own podcast.
You did great.
I'm good. I'm happy with where I'm at.
Oh, amazing. But seriously, I do love your own podcast. Like, I've been really into it after reading the book and then just kind of hearing you narrate those things. And I feel like after everybody reads this book, they're going to want to go listen to that podcast. So, Bethany, where do people find you?
You can find me at Bethany Skelton 5 on Twitter and Bethany RN24 on Instagram. I'm also on Snapchat and Facebook, but it really doesn't matter because I don't talk about anything important on those. So, yay, that's it. Oh,
and
also,
I just flat ass. Oh, go ahead.
No, I do want to plug that I am a sponsor for Alexa Boutique. You can shop there and get 50% off when you use Bethany50 as a code. I know. I'm going to plug it. Sorry.
Okay, fine. That's none of that history related. Guys, you can find and follow the podcast on. Oh, Bethany, I got so annoyed with you. I'm sorry.
Hey,
you can find and follow the podcast at Body Count Pod on both Twitter and Instagram. You can find us on bodycounthistorypod.com. You can also find and follow us through our network at Body Count on bigheadsmedia.com. We're right there in the drop down box on entertainment. You can buy our merchandise there. You can do everything that you want to do there. You can listen to our ridiculous. Bethany's wearing the shirt. I didn't know we had shirts, so that's fucking news to me. And that's always exciting. I will get a shirt. As always, rate, review us. It's not an ask, it's a tell. Thank you, guys. You can follow me, myself, at Jessica Manor on Twitter and Instagram. It's not exciting. It's largely a mass amount of bullshit. And I also want to take this opportunity, please, guys, go follow at Time Travel Talks, hashtag Time Travel Talks on Twitter. It's something that I get really into and end up doing, and I think it's great, and you're going to love the two gals that put that on for all of us, and we can just gather there and gush about weird history shit. Upcoming on their talks are espionage in August, excluding the Cold War, everything up and to the Second World War. So it's a lot of fun that we have there. We talk about a lot of different topics and anything you're really interested in, which is in your field, your bullshit, or just your level of interest. Or if you want to go there and tell us all we're a bunch of pretentious twats, we're okay with that too. So, everybody, thank you for joining us this week. We're going to have Mark back on. He's fantastic. I'm just such a huge fan and a huge fan of the book. We ask all of you guys, join us, see us next week. In the meantime, we love you so much. We thank you for listening, and bye-bye.
Bye.